Folks, we have Irish royalty in the house. Boxer Kenneth Egan, Olympic silver medalist. Is it 10-time national champion?
10-time, yeah. 10
That's
consecutive.
Nice,
yeah.
That's
yeah,
nice.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah.
Pleasure. Great to be here, yeah.
We're on the good expensive
Good
Mace
stuff.
coffee.
Oh, yeah. Give them a plug. Give them a plug.
So before we dive in, you can move that around as much as you want. Don't feel like you have to kind of
super.
have a creak in your back for the whole podcast. I started doing a little bit of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu a few months back, and it's been a friend of mine actually lives out your direction, Paddy Houlihan, convinced me to try and get into it. And I was like, you know what, I'll give it a shot. I didn't expect it to be so transformative for my mindset. Like, in a couple of ways. Firstly, I didn't realise, I thought naively, like any Dublin lad, if you're out in town and a drunken fight starts and if someone starts throwing a few hands, I'm like, do you know what, I've as good a chance as anyone here. Like, then you realise there's just ninjas walking around among us, whether they're boxers, judo guys, Brazilian jiu-jitsu. They're just integrating into the population, but they're ninjas. Like the difference between someone who's trained to fight and someone who's untrained to fight, it's just massive.
Yeah, like that's so true. And I've never even thought of it that way. You walk into the city centre, you don't know who's who.
Yeah.
You know, they might have a karate suit on, I suppose, underneath their jeans and their trousers. But I never, boxing came to me. I worked very, very hard at my sport, my chosen sport. Didn't come naturally. I wasn't the most talented in the room. Quite awkward, quite clumsy young lad starting. Fell over my feet. Coordination was quite poor. And I didn't get the best start. I lost my first 3 All-Ireland finals, 11, 12 and 13 years of age. And I was going to walk away from the sport.
You started young.
Yeah, I walked into Neilstown Boxing Club at 8.5, 9 years of age. So my eldest brother boxed in the club, Neilstown, my brother Willie, and he brought me in. And like I said, not a great start. 3 finals, three losses. Devastated, wanted to walk away from the sport. Wasn't good enough, wasn't fit enough, wasn't strong enough. The sport wasn't for me. But my coach at the time, Noel Humpson, kept instilling in me, there's a little bit of talent there, can I just keep working? Your time will come, your time will come. And I went back the 4th time of asking and eventually won that Irish title.
What age is that?
14.
That's unreal.
Yeah. And I won, like, obviously 15 in a row after that, but the 10 of them being senior, 10 consecutive senior titles. But there was always learning. And it's funny to say, like, I thought it was quite good in around 19, 20, but then the high performance showed up and there was a whole new structure, and then there was boxing got serious.
Yeah.
We brought in a coach from Georgia, Zora Antia, and I thought it was good, but I wasn't at the halfpenny place until he turned up. Like, I was Irish senior champion, but Zora told me, I thought I was an 8 out of 10 in my standard of boxing, and Zora told me I was a 2 out of 10. But that's me being a senior champion, the best in Ireland.
And like, even rewinding from that, because you're from Tala, working class part of Dublin.
Clondalkin. Yeah.
Working class part of Dublin. How did you not get sucked into the traditional sports that we all do, like playing Gaelic, hurling, soccer?
Yeah, well, funny enough, I was born in Neilstown. That's where the club is, Neilstown Boxing Club. And my mum and dad moved out in Neilstown. We 5 boys in my house. And Neilstown at the time, in the late 80s into the early 90s, heroin was coming in from the city centre out to the outskirts of Dublin, so it was getting really, really bad, the epidemic. And my mum and dad moved out of Neilstown up to Woodford. It's about a 2-mile drive, I'd say, I suppose, from Neilstown. So whole new housing estate, new start. But we remained in Neilstown Boxing Club, so I was commuting from the home place to the club Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and a Sunday morning. So that was the life. But boxing, because my older brother was involved in it, that's the natural direction we went in, straight back into it, with the brother Willie, and just had a liking for it, I tried all different sports when I was growing up: basketball, tennis, bit of ga, but wasn't very good at them. Team sports, not really mad into them, individual sports like the boxing, I kind of rather to win and lose on my own, that's the type of person I was.
How much do you think it changed you as a young lad who, coming up in Dublin, you've all the temptation that I suppose anyone listening to this in any major city as a young lad has. You're, getting involved in petty crime, your fights in school. How much do you think the discipline that being into boxing avoided that temptation for you?
I can imagine if I didn't have some kind of sport, and obviously boxing being my sport, it kept me on the straight and narrow for so many years. And the coaches that I had, they instilled in me that, you know, there's a good person in you. You work hard, you get your rewards. You know, you have to put the work in to get the rewards. And that's what boxing gave me. It gave me that element of discipline, respect for others, an element of determination, you have a vision of success. What does it look like? How do you get there? You have to put the work in. You turn up every evening, 7 o'clock, get ready with your hands wrapped. And that environment, I suppose, that we were brought up in was very, very, and that moulded me, that environment. And those great friends I made in the club, that we all dreamed of one thing, you know, was to win an Irish title or a Leinster title even. And just to build on that, and eventually, please God, that distant dream of the Olympics, you know, that was always there, that big carrot, you know. So it kept me on the straight and narrow for a long, long time. And without boxing, I got dread that I don't know where, because don't forget there was 5 of us in the house, 5 boys, 2 years between us all. That's a handful from your mum and dad.
A lot of sparring going on in the back garden.
You know yourself, so it was tough, and the sport that we were involved in kept us on the straight and narrow with the brilliant coaches we had. And they're volunteers going in 3 days a week, 4 days a week, giving their time to look after kids they don't know.
Yeah.
And the amount of time they put in is unbelievable. And that steered me in the right direction, to a degree, through those tricky years of teenage years up into adulthood.
Do you think that's changed a bit? We're talking about this as a problem in cycling at the moment, is just the total fall off in volunteer numbers. Like, I look at my dad when I was a kid. I took it for granted. He was involved in the local football team. He could be 3-4 nights a week and the weekends up there marking pitches, putting up nets, washing kit, driving kids that he didn't know home. I just don't see that as much anymore. And I wonder, is it just Ireland's moved on a little bit as a society? We're a bit more affluent. There's more demands on people's time. You know, you didn't have Netflix back then. Not a lot of lure to sit in and watch RTE 1 and RTE 2. Yeah. Wasn't any new box sets coming through there. Like, so I don't know what it is. Has boxing seen the same kind of fall off in volunteer numbers?
Boxing still, you know, all the clubs around the country, they all run on a certain thing, and that's volunteers. And it, you know, it's a thankless job, and my hat goes off to any volunteer in any club in any sport. But boxing, you know, they're opening the doors, they're setting up the clubs, they're hanging the bags, they're taking down the bags, they're collecting the money, your sub money, they're making the sandwiches if there's a boxing show on, and it's just ongoing all the time, and they get no thanks for it. You know, they don't. And you look at the high performance coaches who are there now and paid positions, which is great, they're doing a fantastic job. But you peel back the layers and you have them volunteers, and without those volunteers that are looking after the 10, 11, 12 year olds, like I said, you're going out in the rain, watching them running around the track or bringing them to clubs. But it's a very demanding job, and it is a job. Volunteers, it is a job that these parents commit to. They can't just ring up and say, oh, I'm not going to be there tonight. The club has to be open. There's 100 kids there looking at them.
But there's a different word that you mentioned that I never heard in team sports. So I played football, like I was okay, got up to playing for Bohemians, never broke into the senior team or anything. And then it was cycling for me once college started. But a word you said there that I've heard so many times since I started in the fight game, it's respect. It all seems to be built on respect. And so much of that then is, it's owning your own decisions. Like, I was talking to a Brazilian jiu-jitsu guy last week, and he was talking about street fights and the idea if someone bumps into you in a bar and spills a drink on you or spills a drink on your girl, it's like the idea that they're disrespecting you or dishonoring you. And he spoke to me about this idea of, yeah, you can engage in that if you want, but the moment you engage, you choose to accept responsibility for every potential outcome in that fight. So what are the potential outcomes? One of his friends breaks a bottle over your head. You punch him, you break your fist. You choke him out, he goes to sleep, you get arrested. You choke him, he goes down, bangs his head, he dies. You know, the moment you engage in that fight, you're responsible for all those consequences. The other basket of consequences, if you choose to just walk away, and it's not cower up, it's walk away, going, well, I'm going to go home, I'm going to have a normal night, I'm going to get me kebab on the way home, I'm going to wake up the next morning, I'm going to walk the dogs, I'm going to do all my normal stuff. And you look at it through that lens of, it's basket A and basket B are my two choices here. Like, there is no choice.
Yeah.
But having the confidence that I think the fight game puts into you, it's the difference between walking away and, like, you're still walking away, but you're walking away with a confidence and knowledge that, like, okay, if this did start, like, I know how to handle it. I'm choosing not to start this. It's elective to walk away.
I think, and it happened to me it hasn't happened to me that many times, in fairness, but it has when I've, you know, been well known for winning senior titles, and I was in a toilet of a nightclub and someone starts mouting. Yeah. And I'm doing them a favour by walking away. You know, that kind of way? Yeah. Like, okay, I'm a boxer, I'm a light heavyweight, I can, you know, handle myself, but I'm actually doing them a favour by talking my way out of that fight.
Yeah.
And that's what boxing instilled in me. You know, I'm not going outside of a boxing ring and punching people to let people know I'm a boxer. Walking around the nightclub with my chest out. That's the last thing. I'm blending in there. I'm having a good time, having a bit of crack. But again, I don't engage. I don't go looking for fights. And a lot of boxers wouldn't. But if stuff did kick off, I'd have to defend myself. But 9 times out of 10, or 10 times out of 10 in my case, I've never had a street fight. I wouldn't engage in it. I wouldn't lower myself.
So what is that? Situational awareness?
It's just an element of awareness that you know that, look, this is not for me. I don't need to engage in this. I don't need to drop to this person's level. Yeah. You know, that's not for me. I'm walking away. I'm the bigger person here. And again, I'm doing them a favour by not engaging.
And you have a different set of consequences to your normal Joe or Jane listening to the podcast who starts swinging hands in a nightclub. You swing hands in a nightclub, there's a lot higher chance you'll do someone serious injury or kill them.
And as you mentioned there, if I hit someone and they fall wrong and they're left in a wheelchair, where does that leave me? Yeah. Okay, I caught him with a great shot. I'm a great bloke. Yeah. And he's in a wheelchair. That's no good to me. Yeah. You know, and the way I would punch would be fairly direct and fairly accurate. I'm not gonna miss. It's not gonna be one of these fights you see on the streets where the lads are doing windmills. It's quite straight down the line, and before your man's knocked out, he's hitting the deck. Not a kind of way. So, and I know that now. Like I said, I'm not a massive puncher, but I'm quite accurate. I landed that chin fairly fast with him standing across the toilet with about 15 points in him. He wouldn't see the shot coming at him, you know, that kind of way. But geez, that's not for me though. I wouldn't engage in any of that type of fighting.
Actually, we were speaking to Paddy Houlihan. He was telling me a great story last time we met him for lunch. He was in his house. He was meant to drop the kids to school in the morning. And he was in the house and he wasn't feeling well. I think he was teaching a class or something at lunch and he wasn't feeling super well. And he said to the missus, "Can you drop the kids to school? I want to have a bit of a lie on." And she's like, "Oh, grand, okay, you owe me one." So she went out, left the house. So it would have been her in the house. So he goes back asleep and he wakes back up. He hears this sound. He's like, "She's gone. What's that?" It's like a sound of someone walking up the stairs. So he kind of peeks up and he's like, "There's some big dopey, sloppy cunt walking up the stairs." And he's like, "What is going on here?" So he's kind of quiet and he waiting, and your man pokes his head in the door. And he's like, your man looked at him and thought he was asleep. So Paddy said he crawled out of bed like a ninja, stuck his boxers on. He's listening to try and hear where your man is. And he's like, your man is on the far side of the wall listening to hear if Paddy's still asleep. So he said he stepped out of the door. I can't remember exactly what he caught him with, a left-hander or a right-hander, but he caught him straight away. He's like, your man had his hands down by his side. I caught him before he knew what he was doing. And he ended up fighting him down the stairs. I don't know if he got him a chokehold or Kimura or whatever out into the front driveway. But I was thinking after the cops came, neighbours called the cops and everything. Paddy was like, he could have been in your house. And the cops, the neighbours, like, I can't believe he was in your house. Because their initial impression was, geez, what are you doing? Like, you're beating a fella looks like you're beating a fella to death in your front driveway. Like, what's going on? Yeah. He's like, he was in my house. And they're like, oh, get stuck in if he was in your house. Yeah. But it's just insane. But I was thinking, like, the poor young lad, like, can't have that much sympathy for someone robbing a house. But of all the houses that he could have robbed in Dublin, he goes into a UFC fighter's house. But it was just a terrifying story where I was like, I've never really heard that happen.
It's frightening, isn't it? When you think of that, like, Jesus. And I don't know how I'd act if someone came into my house, you know.
You'd like to think you'd be brave, but Jesus, I'd say it's frightening.
Yeah, my God. Fair play to him. Jesus.
It's like, what's he got? Like, you're not going into a house with, a coat hanger to break the window. Like, you probably have a screwdriver, you probably have a blade. Yeah, exactly, it's yeah, absolutely frightening. Looking at the boxing scene now, I'd be, more than a passing interest in the boxing scene, but I'm kind of conflicted with the YouTube category of boxing that's emerged. How does that sit with you?
Yeah, look, it is what it is. It's a spectacle for people that want to watch it, They attract a certain type of an audience, and they're capitalising on that. I think, the YouTubers, the Logan Pauls and the Jake Pauls, and they have that viewership, if you like, and they don't care, once they get the clicks and the eyes on the sport. But it's insulting to a degree where you have young professionals that are busting their ass week in, week out, making weight, travelling all over the world, getting fights to try and get a crack at a world title, or onto any big show, and then you have these half-wits running a big show. And look, there's a demand is there. Simplest. They're not fighting in front of an empty stadium. The demand is there. The kids are turning up to buy the tickets, and they're making money. And the pro game is about money. It's a business. Yeah. And a lot of pros are a bit pissed off because they're not making the money that these lads are making, and rightly so. But there's nothing you can do about that. You just stay in your own lane and continue to try and better yourself and climb up that ladder. But it doesn't help when you have this crowd coming in. And it's not only the low, it's this other crowd, like the misfits, If these young lads putting on gloves for the first time and fighting in front of a couple of thousand people and getting well paid, and to watch it as a boxing purist, if you like, knowing the game inside out, it's embarrassing. But the people that are watching these fights don't know what good boxing looks like. Yeah. So they're ignorant to what they're looking at. Yeah. They're just supporting the person in the red shorts, whoever he may be. He gets his hand raised. Oh yeah, brilliant night out. But they don't see the art. The art has been missing from these shows.
Like for me, watching it, don't have anywhere near the tools to assess how good these fighters are like you would. I look at it and it reminds me of watching. Do you ever go watch one of your mates in a blue collar box or a white collar show? Absolute nonsense. Like
I'm retired since 2013, I'd say, right? So over 10 years. I still do a bit of running, do a little bit of training here and there, but I genuinely think over 5 3-minute rounds, easily I'd beat Jake Paul.
Oh yeah,
piece of piss. No, that's not me going into a mad fancy training camp around.
Is this your call out?
Punch holes in him for sport. But why would he fight me though? I'm a nobody, you know. I'm not going to attract those clicks. But he's that bad. Like I'm retired, like I said to you. Like I'm done a long time. But when he stepped back into the ring, he wouldn't lay a glove on me. That's how bad he is.
But is there a lesson? So I get why boxers, real boxers, like whether they're volunteers or fighters, I get why they hate it. Because I look at it and I'm like, oh, this doesn't even look like boxing.
There's an element of jealousy there as well, don't forget.
But is there something to learn from it?
Well, you have to market yourself right. Isn't that what it's about? You know, it is. You have all these top world-class fighters from, say, Ukraine or Russia or Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, but they're not really marketable. And they're brilliant to watch. But again, professional boxing is about putting bums on seats and getting lads to buy pay-per-view. Jake Paul has that character, that personality, and whoever else he's with, to build that group of people that want to see him fighting. Doesn't matter who he's fighting. There's a man, Tommy Fury. Yeah. He won't fight anyone half decent in the pro game. He's calling out all these other nincompoops. Do you know what I'm saying? But it's an easy night for him. Yeah. He's making money and he's clever. Fair play. It looks as brilliant for him. He's calling out these lads that he knows there's a half chance of beating, and he's getting well paid for it. Why would he get against the top 10 contender in his weight in the real game and get hurt and not win? It's a no-brainer. Yeah, no, it's bizarre. But I had a friend who's a fighter ask me about another friend who owns a big business, saying, "Oh, do you reckon he'd sponsor me?" And I was chatting to him, I was like, actually what you're looking for is charity. You're not looking for sponsorship, because sponsorship involves some sort of return on investment for the person giving you. Like someone will sponsor this podcast. We've amazing sponsors on the podcast. They sponsor the podcast because a lot of people tune into the podcast. People tune into the podcast, no, I won't pedal shite. So they'll go, okay, I need a nutrition brand, I need a bike brand. Let me go and check out his recommendation. So then the company can justify that marketing spend because there's a return on investment for them. But the fighter I was chatting to, I was like, well, okay, say he gives you $5,000 for the year. How does he get $6,000 back? Like, what's that return on investment look like? And he's just looking at me blankly like, what? And that's what I wonder, is the Jake Paul, the Logan Paul, these guys, is that what the real boxers can learn from them, saying it can't be 100% on the art. It has to be, I don't know what that percentage is, but you have to peel away 2%, 5% of your time. Now, in this new world we're in, to build the Instagram following, to build the Twitter following, to build the YouTube channel, whatever it is. And that's what it's about. It's about branding yourself, getting the brand out there. You're not just an Olympic medalist or a world title contender. You're selling a product that people want to see and want to hear about. Yeah. They want to know what you're talking about, what your interests are. A bit of scandal. Want you see you shouting and screaming at people. Yeah. That's the way it's gone now. A quiet, timid, relaxed boxer's not going to actually sell tickets. Yeah. He might be brilliant in the ring, but who knows about him if he's not talking about himself? No one will know about that best kept secret. Was the crossover, I'm trying to think of the evolution of that. Was the crossover fights the entry point to that, like McGregor fighting Mayweather? That was massive. That was the biggest. It was gas crack. It was, of course. And no one ever dreamed that it happened. And I actually remember I was in, I don't know what radio station I was in with Paddy Houlihan. The two of us were talking about the fight before it started. I think it was the week before the fight. And he wanted to have a bet with me. He was saying McGregor was going to beat Mayweather. And I said, I'm not a betting man. And he wanted to bet me €1,000 and this, that, and the other. I wouldn't shake his hand. I said, I'm not a betting man, Paddy. No, he's going to knock him out. He's too much power, this, that, and the other. And I just laughed at him. But Conor boxed as a kid, didn't he? He did. He boxed for Crumlin for a couple of years. But look, I'm not going to slate him. The level of his boxing was quite average as a junior boxer. There's levels in boxing, and to call himself a top class boxer wouldn't be fair on top class boxers. Now, great in the cage, great at what he does, and great at selling himself. Great, and we're calling out Mayweather, and Mayweather taking the bait, and the two of them taking everyone's money. Was brilliant. What a stroke. you know, but he was never winning the fight. And I think Mayweather, he possibly even carried him for a couple of rounds. But that's okay. But the two of them walked away laughing at everyone that paid the pay-per-view.
But it's brilliant to see Floyd doing this, because Floyd's going around and like the lads he's fighting, it's in a totally different category to the Jake Paul stuff, because Floyd just, you can't hit him. It's like trying to punch a shadow.
No, let's rewind there. Floyd Mayweather is 50-0, 49-0 if you take away
that his record,
yeah, like never, and he's beat I don't know how many world champions, so he doesn't have to bullshit. He's been there.
Is he the greatest?
He's one of the greatest ever. Yeah, he definitely is the greatest defensive fighter on the planet. Right, that's brilliant. Right, he's beaten all the lads. But then now he's doing these exhibitions where he's going around getting paid 15, 20 million to get in the ring with someone that can't box.
Yeah.
It's easy money for him. Floyd likes money. He's kind of half addicted to it.
Don't call him Money Mayweather for nothing.
So he really has that attraction to making money and staying relevant. Well, how does he do that? Fighting these fights in Hong Kong and Japan and all these different places. Handy money, shows his face, doesn't get hit, walks away with a few bob. Yeah. And he's going to do that until he's probably 50, 60.
But that's the thing, isn't it? You're saying there, like, doesn't get hit. That's because of his style. But then I wonder when you see Tyson coming back for these exhibitions, like, no one wants to see that. Like, I loved watching Tyson growing up. I've great memories of sitting down with my dad late at night watching Tyson biting ears off, and it's like, it was brilliant.
Imagine a child sitting on the couch watching that fight now against Jake Paul, and his father telling him, Mike Tyson used to be the greatest on the planet.
Yeah.
He used to be the most feared man.
Literally the baddest man on the planet.
A total head case, a looper, a this, that and the other. And the child looking at him in the ring then, slugging around in the boxing ring with Jake Paul, jabbing the head off him. It's horrendous. There's two viewpoints there that are very different. The father sitting there waiting for something to happen and the son waiting for Jake Paul to beat Mike Tyson. It's horrendous.
Those early Tyson fights are terrifying. Like, imagine you've stood up against some bad men and looked them in the eye.
Like, there's nothing worse than a fighter. When you look into his eyes, he doesn't care if you hit him or not. He just wants to kill you. And I've come across a few of them. Like, that's tough. That's a long night's work.
Yeah.
You know? And that was Mike Tyson every time he stepped into the ring.
What's going on in your head there where you're looking him down and you know he doesn't care about how much damage I inflict tonight?
Yeah, it's a long night. You need to be on your toes. You need to be moving. You need to be concentrating 100% for the whole 4 rounds. You're on the ball all the time. And you might win the fight, you might lose the fight. But he wants to hurt you. He wants to take your head off, and he's missing you by a smidgen every time he throws big shots. And you're getting a little bit of reassurance that, okay, he's missing me here. I'm feeling a little bit better about this because he can't hit me. But it's a long 4 rounds when he's trying to kill you, you know.
But is that what made you a little bit special and it brought that success? Because in that moment, in that stare down, you're not shrieking. Like, I'm thinking of myself in that same situation. If I look into his eyes and I see this killer, I don't know that I don't totally crumble. I don't know if the normal reaction is you're one there going, I'm going to need to be on my game, I'm going to need to move, I'm going to need to slip, jab, move. I don't think that's the normal reaction. I think that's the reaction of the champions.
But I think when you spend so much time in that environment and in a boxing ring with people like that, you know, if he can't hit you, he can't hurt you.
Yeah.
So you can have all the muscle in the world and all the power in the world, but if he's not hitting you clean, you're getting away with it. So it was my job to make him miss, and I was a counter puncher, so that would be I make my opponent miss, and when he misses I'd counter, I'd score. So that was my job, to make him miss and then punish him. That was how I boxed throughout my whole career. So I was very good on my feet and I was bringing opponents into a false sense of security. They think they could land a shot clean, they throw the shot, they miss, and then I counter, and then I'm gone again. Not that kind of way. Yeah. So there was an art to that kind of boxing as well. I wasn't standing toe to toe. I had no interest in standing toe to toe. That wasn't my game. It was in and out, scoring points and moving all the time.
But there's also there's a mental element. I seen someone, I was a running coach on Twitter the other day, and I don't know, I guess they were trying to advertise their running coaching services or something. But he had a thing up saying running a marathon is 99% mental, 1% physical. And I remember looking back to him going, like, it's not. You can visualize it all you want, but you need to go and train. Like, it's definitely not the other way around either. It's not 99%, 1%, because I've seen great athletes across multiple sports do all the preparation and then just crumble on game day. What do you think that division is, or how did you think about that mental preparation?
Yeah, I've seen that in, you have world champions going to the Olympic Games and getting beaten in their first fights. Yeah. So it does happen. But, it's about keeping it as simple as possible. Like, and there is times where I'm in a dressing room and I'm wrapping my hands 15 minutes before a fight. When I wrap my hands, I get into my state of visualization. Whoever my opponent is, I probably know him because I'm on the circuit so long. I'd know what he's about, what his strengths are, what his weaknesses are. So I'm wrapping my hands, visualizing how I'm going to start the fight. What's he going to throw at me? What way he's going to stand? Is he going to move to his left? Is he going to feint? All those different things. And I'm thinking about that in my head. And when my hands are wrapped, then there's a thought in my head that goes, what the fuck am I doing here? The fear kicks in. I must be mad going out to fight this fella. Now this is like Olympic level talk in my head, down to when I was 8 or 9 years of age. What the hell am I doing this for? That fear that creeps up into you. You wrap the hands, you do your bit of pad work, and out you go. Then that leaves you. And I think it's important that you have that nervous energy, because it makes you just react to that a little bit quicker. Your twitch fibers, you're just on the ball.
Yeah. That
nervous energy allows you slip, allows you faint, allows you to do all these things. And then after the bell rings and you start moving and you make a miss once or twice, you settle in yourself. And then just, it's like it happens so natural. It's like natural. It's a natural kind of a thing that happens between two people.
And is it experience and repetition that allows you to, I'm guessing the first time you stepped up to fighting at world title level, you're getting to a point, or even European level, the first time you get there and it's new, you've never ticked this box before, you have an extra amount of nervous energy, and the more times you fight at that level, does it just get back to being, oh, this is what I do, this is where I belong?
Exactly. It's about that kind of repetitive behaviour. And a great example for us was we went to Russia for the first time. I didn't want to go to Russia. They were the best at the time on the planet, amateur boxing team. They were animals. And we landed over there in the December, snow, tornadoes. And there was only 5 of us on the team. And remember, the next morning we woke up to go out to do our first session. You had to go up at 6:30 and go out onto like a courtyard and shake about for about 15 minutes. Then you go back in and have your breakfast. But before we done that, we stood in a big straight line, looking at the coaches who were giving us instructions for the day, what our sessions were going to be.
Yeah. Irish coaches or Russian coaches?
Our coach was from Georgia, so he could translate. He was from Georgia, the breakaway country from Russia.
Yeah.
And the Russians were given the spiel with their book in their hand. And I looked out of the line and looked up to me right, and there was 80 Russian boxers. And there was 5 of us. And I'm thinking, fuck, this is going to be a long 3 weeks. They didn't give a fiddler's who we were, what titles we had, how good we were, how bad we were, who we knew. We were getting bet from arsehole to elbow.
Feels like a scene out of Rocky 4 or something where you're going to fight Ivan Drago.
It was very, very tough 3 weeks. But we needed to be there to learn how to be, or how to compete with the best. If we stayed in Dublin and trained amongst ourselves, when we went to competition with these lads, we wouldn't have hacked the pace. They were on a different level. Do you understand? We had to train with the best to even get half of what they knew about, to bring that back with us.
What was the gap between you and them? What were they doing better?
We looked at analysis. We had a great video analysis guy working with us, Alan Swanton. He recorded everything, all the fights, all the sparring, everything. Recorded all the rounds, all the fighters. And we noticed that in our sparring back in Dublin, amongst ourselves, something would happen in the ring every 5 to 7 seconds. An attack, a feint, a slip, something would happen, an action. When we recorded the Russians in their camp, when they were sparring each other, something was happening every 2 seconds. So the intensity, we were so lazy in the ring compared to the Russians. They were making stuff happen flat out. So that meant we had to change our training. Our conditioning had to adjust. We couldn't keep that pace up if we hadn't got the conditioning.
Yeah. So
the whole thing changed, flipped on its head. We need to act like these Russians. How do they stay at that level for 4 rounds? Now, I mean, it's intense. From first bell to last bell, you have to maintain the same pace. You can't peak in the second round and then die off. It's the same pace throughout the whole 4 rounds. And their whole motto was, if you can't live with them for them 4 rounds, well, they're going to win.
I love that idea. I spoke to an Army, Navy SEAL Tier 1 operator, and he talked to me about this, dividing stuff into upstream and downstream consequences. He's like, if you can figure out an upstream unlock like that, they move every 2 seconds, and now you deconstruct that cascades downstream into, okay, now this has got to change our fueling, because you got to fuel different to move that much more. This has got to change our strength and conditioning. This has got to change our conditioning. This has got to change so many, even our mental preparation. Everything has to change by identifying one upstream thing. But you can also fuck that up, because you can identify one upstream thing that's wrong. You know, a good example is a lot of people use lactates. And I've spoken to some of the best coaches in the world, and they said lactates are one of the easiest to contaminate readings in the world. So if you take a bad upstream contaminated reading, and now that cascades downstream into wrong training intensity zones, poor recovery time. So it's interesting that you guys clocked that so early.
Well, that was down to Gary Keegan. He was our director at the time, high performance director. And he was watching from the outside. He wasn't a coach. He just sat on the outskirts watching what was going on. And to see the intensity that the Russians were amongst themselves, it was like they were sparring, but it was like a proper test match, proper fight.
Yeah.
There was no, let's go easy today, buddy, wink, wink. And that's the way we had to be. It's all or nothing.
Yeah.
Even when you're back in Dublin, it's all or nothing in the sparring sessions. We can't say, we'll take a hand today because you know each other.
Is there downside to that though? Does that carry extra injury risk?
Well, it's like everything, isn't it? You have to take the risk. You have to work hard. You can't be in a training camp and operate at 60%, leaving that camp and going to competition and then bring your 60 up to 100.
Yeah.
You're working as hard. You have to replicate the sparring as if it's a fight. It's fight tempo.
So what would be the equivalent? I spoke to Paddy about jiu-jitsu and I was like, Paddy, what's the unlock for this? Like, if you were to give me one tip for getting good at this fast, what is it? He's like, don't spar white belts. He's like, you spar white belts, your injury risk goes up 99% and your learnings are basically nil from sparring white belts. It's a war every time. Is there similar analogies you could carry through to boxing?
It's like in every sport, you know, you'll operate at the level that you're in with. You know, if I was in with someone that wasn't as good as me, sometimes you'd actually lower your level down to their level. And that's not good for you. The intensity changes. They're going, yeah, so you need to be in with the best in the world. And that's what we were doing when we were in Russia. But we didn't start in Russia. We went to France and Germany first to kind of test the waters. And we were still quite behind these countries.
Yeah.
Then we got better and we got...
Are we full-time then?
We were full-time. We were funded by the government. There was sports capital grants given out there and you had to meet a certain criteria to get funded. There wasn't much now, but we were sleeping on the gym floor.
So you're kind of...
In the National Stadium.
12 grand, 23 grand, different levels.
My first sports grant was 1,200 quid.
1,200
for the year.
That's tough going for the year.
You know, I was remember in my early senior career, I was a waiter up in City West.
And you can't
people.
That's wild.
You know, so you're making a few bob and you're going back and you're training then and you're working as hard as you can to try and get to the senior level and you're winning a few medals here and there. You get small grants, but it's not until you win a major medal that your funding would go up. And the max funding is 40,000 now, and it hasn't changed.
Yeah,
it's 40,000 a year. You'd probably know that from the sports capital. It's 40,000.
Look, and it's one of those weird things when you get to that. Maybe I think boxing could be slightly different, but for cycling and some of the other sports, the criteria is it's a world class criteria. So, but you need the help to get to world class.
Yes.
You don't really need as much financial help when you are world class because now sponsorship opportunities, contracts are coming your way. So it seems like a problem in the whole funding.
No, I agree with you there. Like you won't get the funding until you win your medal. But how do you get to the position to try and win the medal? That's tough. It really is tough. I was lucky enough. I won a medal in 2005 at the European Championships, a bronze medal. And that caught me up in the top funding then for the next couple of years. Okay. So that allowed me then to kind of take a breather, you know, and focus on me boxing properly. But something needs to change in that sense where you need to give these athletes all the help they can to get that initial first medal, you know, because you want to keep the best involved in the sport. You don't want them to fall away to the side because they haven't got enough money to get a taxi or a bus to the camp.
Look, and you see it so much. Like I've seen some really great talents leaving sports, cycling, like for want of, you know, a €5,000 grant maybe for the year to cover flights back and forth to France or a spare wheels or something like that. It's like they're gone. Absolutely bananas. What's a training week look like for you when you're full time back in this?
We come into camp on a Tuesday. A normal week before we go into heavy training, a camp would be starting on a Tuesday morning.
And when you say a camp, what do you mean now?
So we're
you're getting ready
athletes.
for...
Yeah, no, we're just training. This is before we head off to wherever destination we're going to.
Okay.
So we'd start off in the National Stadium on a Tuesday morning, 11 o'clock. You're standing there's a line there at the edge of the gym floor. Everyone's standing on that line facing the coaches at 11 o'clock. The coaches will read out the instructions for the session. Right, Zora, Billy and whoever else is there, right? They'd read out what's going on. If you're not on that line at 11 o'clock, you don't do the session.
Right.
You're on that line with your hands wrapped, ready to go. That's the start of it. So your Tuesday morning would be a boxing session. Wednesday weights, Thursday boxing, Friday running. It's been a long time now since I've been in the gym floor. So you'd alternate it. So there'd be running, weights, boxing, weights. 2 weight sessions, 2 running sessions in the morning. And the evenings then, you'd have your training session an hour and a half. And then you'd give your shower, have your lunch across in the National Stadium. Come back, go get your bed then, sleep on your floor or up in the rooms that were provided for us, rough and ready.
Yeah.
Then you're back on the floor then at 4 o'clock.
Okay, so
double days. Double days, oh yeah. 2 sessions a day, 5 days a week.
It's tough going.
Yeah. So I was lucky enough, I lived in Dublin, so I drove home sometimes. But then I stayed in the stadium a few times. So that was it. And then before you go to a training camp then, that's your go to a camp then before a competition. Could be a 2-week camp.
Would you go abroad for them?
Oh yeah, always abroad, because we couldn't bring teams here.
Yeah.
We didn't have the facilities for them, so we had to always go away. So France and Germany were the main spots for us. They had great camps. They had what we have now in Abbottstown. They've had them 20 years.
Okay.
Multi-sport kind of facility. We didn't have that back then. No, I'm talking about 2003 and 4 here.
Yeah.
We had nothing. So it's different back over there. Germany had 3 or 4 of them, and France had loads of them, and Australia have loads, but we didn't have that at all at the time. So we had to travel to get our camps in. So we'd spend 2 weeks in the camp and then go to competition for a week. So that's a 3-week stint. So you're training all that, and then you're coming home then, bit of downtime, and then you're back in there. And the high performance is great, because before the high performance, I'd probably have 1 multi-nations, which would be a small competition, right? Probably 2 or 3 fights. You'd have your major, which were the European or Worlds, and that's it for the year. Now, if you got beaten early in our European or Worlds, you could walk away probably at the end of the year with 4 or 5 internationals.
Yeah. When
the high performance kicked off and we got funding and we started travelling, we were fighting 20 times a year.
Do you think there was Derv sat in the chair 2 weeks ago, and she spoke about just having access to no resources? And I would have looked at that as going, oh, you know, poor Derv, I can't believe you didn't have access to resources. She's like, no, it's brilliant. Like, because I got to the start line, I looked around of like, they've all had access to these resources. I haven't. She's like, I'm here in spite of that. She's like,
that's terrible, Laura.
So she's like, that's
she's a devil. Yeah.
She's like, I'm harder than they are. I want this more than they do, and that's gonna tell as soon as the gun goes off. Irish boxing's famous for, like, it has something different. You know, the je ne sais quoi, the magic dust. No one quite knows what it is. Is it coaches? Is it the athletes? Is it the rich Irish fighting culture? There's something there that the other sports don't have. You just look at the medal totals from every single Olympic Games, the boxers, how well we've done compared to our population size internationally with some of the greatest fighters of all time. Was that kind of sleeping rough, you know, really not making much cash? Do you think that was a secret benefit?
When I was senior champion in 2001 to 2003, right? I was 2000 champ, 1, 2 and 3. That's 3 times Irish champion before the high performance started. When Gary Keegan came in and drew that imaginary line with his foot across the floor and spoke about the high performance and I'm setting this up and who wants to be involved, there was 15 boxers on that floor that day. 15. Most of them are senior champions getting ready for some competition. We all stepped across the line. But within 2 or 3 months, that 15 dropped to 5. Because what you just mentioned there, they didn't want to put the work in. Didn't want to train full time. Didn't want to sleep on a mattress.
Yeah.
Didn't want to dedicate their life to the cause. Now, I wasn't happy just being a senior champion. Some lads were delighted with that. Best in the country, yeah, I'm happy with that. I wanted more than that. I would do anything. What was ever asked of me, I would do to achieve what I wanted to achieve. And getting to that Olympic Games, I would have walked across a field of broken glass on my hands and knees if I had to. If Zara told me to do that, I'd do it. So there was a wanting me to get better. There was a wanting me to improve. Not all the lads had that. Some lads were kind of dipping their toes in about the full-time training, or no, not for me, and they just dissolved. So going back to sleeping on the mattresses, going to Russia in the winter, all those horrendous things that I had to sustain, the environments that we were involved in throughout all those 10 years and moulded the person I was. I kept coming back. I got beaten in all these competitions. I was back on that floor, on that line, with my hands wrapped at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock. Let's go again. Let's continue learning. Let's keep pushing ourselves. And that team changed every year. Lads were losing in their national title. So they come number 2, number 3, they're gone. Yeah. But I remained the senior champion. So I was there every Tuesday at 11 o'clock, ready to go again. But losing all the fucking time. But kept coming back and losing and coming back and losing. That's why I won my fucking medal, because I kept coming back. Standing on that fucking line on a Tuesday morning at 11 o'clock. Getting a bit frustrated there now.
What gave you the trust in Zor to keep coming back there, to not be like, he doesn't know, man, doesn't know what he's talking about?
Yeah. I knew what he was talking about because I seen how he moved. And he taught me to box through demonstration. He didn't read it out of a book. And that confrontation we had about him telling me I was a 2 out of 10, I needed that. Because if he hadn't have told me, if he wasn't honest with me, and just read, I better not upset Kenny, he's a senior champion here, I would have never improved. So his reality was different to mine. I thought it was great, but really I wasn't. I was shocking when I look back at it. And the 5 years that I spent with him, twice a day, 6 days a week, for 4.5, 5 years, got me to that Olympic final. Listening to him, watching him through demonstration, every little thing he was teaching me. And you're talking about earlier on about repetition. It got so boring, but it had to be done. to perfect a certain punch or whatever it was. You know, many people would turn away and say, no, I'm sick of that. I don't want that anymore. But no, let's go, Zara. What do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? Like I said to you, whatever he said, I try it. And we work together and we built that trust. And trust is very important among athlete and coach. You know, I believed in what he was teaching me, and I sacrificed everything for that.
Was it just athlete coach, or did you become friends?
We became friends. We still send the odd text here and there. You know, he's had me out to his family home. We've been through something very, very sacred that not many people have. You know, to come together and qualify for Olympic Games first and foremost, and then to go and represent Ireland at Olympic Games together is something very, very unique. And he's done it with a lot of fighters since. But this was his first games with an Irish boxer to get to an Olympic final. And
how central do you think he was at building that culture that, you know, brought it through, you know, our Katie Taylors, you know, maybe our most famous fighter ever?
Like, and it all started with Zor and Billy and Gary Keegan. If they hadn't have come into my life, if they hadn't come into Irish boxing, I don't think we would be where we are today. Definitely not with all those medals we've had. Yeah. It would have been still the same, bringing coaches in for certain camps, training in that gun room for the weekend, and then going home and going back to your clubs. There would have been no growth in Irish boxing. Probably would have got a sneaky medal here or there just through pure talent. Yeah. But the medals we've won since, like our Olympic team started that in 2008. 5 boxers travelled to Beijing, 3 medals. Yeah. We were the only three medals out of the whole Olympic team of 50 odd. 3 Olympic medals came from boxing.
The thing is, I don't think the medals do a service to, you know, without Derv, does Adeleke ever come true? Without Kenneth Egan, does Katie Taylor ever come true? I think that just the medal alone, or looking at someone's results, I don't think it does service to their contribution to that sport, because we're such a small island. And it's like seeing you on the biggest stage in the Olympics. Like, what age would Katie have been then? She would have been a little girl watching that and going, he's from Dublin. Like, he's on the TV winning medals and he's from Dublin. I could do that. Yeah.
There's a great example. When I watched Michael Croup win his gold medal, I was 8 years. I was 10 years of age, right? I was 2 years in Neilstown Boxing Club at the time. I was boxing at the time, and Mick won his gold medal. I was 10. I remember in the sitting room, my family home, everyone screaming and shouting at the TV. Now, I wanted to be Michael Carew. I was boxing 2 years. I thought it was great, and I wanted to be like Michael Carew and stand on an Olympic podium. How many kids that morning watching him win that gold medal said the same thing I did? Yeah. How many kids went on to do that? Like, it's not easy.
No, it's not.
How many kids around Dublin or all over the country watched Michael Carew stand on that podium and said, I want to be the next Michael Carew? The following year, I went out in the St. Patrick's Day parade dressed up as Michael Carew. Had to get a red wig from somewhere.
We need to get a picture of that.
You know what I mean? So, seeing this and seeing it being achieved sparks something in people. But it's not an easy road. How many, and the same with to Katie Taylor when we went to Beijing and won those medals. There was young lads, like Jack Marley and all, who were only kids watching those Olympic Games, are now representing Ireland at the Olympics in Paris, you know. So there's that ripple effect. We have to see success. We do need to see it. And you're talking about Derval O'Rourke there as well, and Rashida. Amazing. How many girls is she going to influence now over the next 20 or 30 years?
Yeah.
We're going to be winning medals in athletics. Definitely.
And I think that dichotomy's getting starker though, because you talk about they inspire you, Carruth inspired you, but he also inspired, say, a couple of other 1,000 other people. But 99.9% of those other 1,000 people, they see what's required. Yeah. And they just go, this isn't, they fall away, they get an injury, something happens in school, they get a new girlfriend, they fall away. It's not glamorous. And I wonder, in a social media age where we're just seeing clips, we're just seeing highlights, is it looking more glamorous? And we're having more of a gap between, I always say, high performance happens in the shadows. Like, I think Michael Phelps had a great one, said, it's what you do in the dark that matters in the light. I love that saying. I was like, what a cool slogan for a poster or a t-shirt or something. But you can't paint that in an Instagram reel.
And you're right though, it's all these quick flicks of success, crossing a line or hand going up in a ring or landing the perfect punch. But they don't look at the hardship that goes on in the background. You know, like when we trained, like I was in rags, because all it was just to cover you until you sweat the stuff that you're wearing would fall apart. You're doing so much sweating. So you weren't wearing your fancy Nikes and this, that and the other. It was rough and ready. And that's what was required. And no one's seen that. No one actually watched what was going on in that gun room in the National Stadium. It was, you'd pay to watch the sparring in there. It was that ferocious. Yeah. It was brilliant. But we had to do that to bring ourselves on. It was amazing. But people don't see that. They see the person standing on the podium or getting a medal around his neck or getting a PB. But sport is horrendous. It's horrible. Especially at elite level. And as you said there, so many kids want to be the Olympian. Oh, that looks great. I want to be like him. But they don't see the struggle it is to get there, and all the ups and downs and the failures, the constant failure in your journey. I've had so many failures, constant. I'm a failure in Spartan context, going through all those years. Failed so many times. But why did I succeed? Because I kept coming back.
Do you think you were equipped for those failures? Or did you have to learn on the job?
You're learning all the time, and you would question yourself, why did I lose to him? You know, I'm better than him. Why did he beat me that day? You know, and there was lads that I would beat in a less serious competition. I beat them quite easy because there was nothing at stake. The same lad I got beaten in an Olympic qualifier, he'd beat me. And I could never solve that conundrum. Like any day in a different competition, I beat him hands down. Why was he beating me on the Olympic qualifying day? Because I was putting too much stake on it.
Yeah.
There was too much of a reward. I can't possibly lose against this fella. Worrying, and all of a sudden then I get beat. So it was giving him too much power. And I learned that, you know, and that's part of the journey I was on. I didn't qualify for Athens. I tried to qualify for 2004. 3 attempts I had. Failed all 3 of them. I was going to retire again then.
Really, yeah?
Yeah, I had enough of it. I said, that's it. This is not for me. I was senior champion. I'd done it many times, and I just didn't become the Olympian. I was sick of it.
So how does the qualification work? Because you missed, obviously, London 2012.
Yeah.
Like, that's because it was a Joe Ward that was coming through then.
That's right, yeah.
He beat you in the senior final. But
that's right.
How did the qualification work? You only qualify, the senior champion's the only one entitled to qualify?
So you have to be senior champion first and foremost. Okay. Right? You win your title, and then you go to, there's 3 qualifiers in amateur boxing around Europe. Three like a multi-nations. So the first one we had for Athens, God, I don't know where it was, but anyway, my last, there was 2 of them left. One was in Pescara in Italy, and I got beaten in my last one, and that was it. Then I said, right, that's it now. The Olympics is not for me. Andy qualified. He was the only one that was going. The European Championships, he qualified. So I was devastated, and I was heartbroken that he was younger than me, coming through the ranks and qualified. Off he goes. Yeah. And I was disgusted with that, you know. But then I got a call off Billy Walsh looking for me to go to a training camp with Andy just before he went out to Athens, and I didn't want to go. He was, you know, fuck him. I'm not going to a camp with Andy. He's going to the Olympics. I'm not. But I ended up going over to the camp and spending time with Andy and Billy, the 3 of us together, training away together with the rest of the teams that were there. But remember, on the last day we were going home, and I was packing my bag to head back to Dublin, and Andy was packing his Olympic bag with the 5 rings on it.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's hard.
It's like I bent over and someone with a steel toe cap boot gave me such a kick up into the bollocks. It was horrendous. And I said, Andy, best of luck to you. And off he went, and I went back to Dublin, and I was walking away with the sport again then, you know, that was it. But there was a little fire in my belly, and I believed in the structure that was being set up. This is high performance structure, and Zor and Billy and Gary, something good was happening. There was a good connection there. And don't forget, it's a big commitment. If you look at a 4-year cycle,
massive,
not knowing the outcome at the end of it. Yeah. Will I become the Olympian after 4 years of sacrifice? Will I become the Olympian? Doing all this Groundhog Day shit again, living out of a suitcase, travelling all over the world. It's hard. It's a hard old gig. Like,
and it's the opportunity cost.
It's hard. It's not.
It's what you're giving up as well.
Yeah, it's everything.
It's
you're
like
your whole life on pause.
You're not going to college. You're not getting the job. You're not getting the apprenticeship. You're not starting the relationship. You're walking. Like, I was chatting to a friend, actually interviewed one of my best mates on the podcast the other day. We started cycling around the same time, and he sort of just kind of stayed around amateur level, and then I went off, moved to France and Canada and America and done my thing. And he was like, what do you think the difference was? And I was like, I just torched through my entire life to try and get better at cycling. Like, I didn't care if I looked at every single decision through a lens of, does this make me a better or worse bike rider? Whether that's got like a girlfriend say, do you want to go to the cinema? I'd be like, no, I'm not going to cinema. Like, do you want to go on holidays? No, I'm not going on holidays. I torched friendships with family. I torched relationships with girlfriends. Like, everything got torched. And I didn't get the Olympic medal out the far side of it. So there's something almost self-destructive, I think, in an athlete to be able to just torch that opportunity for an uncertain outcome.
Yeah, like it's madness, isn't it, when you think of it? Yeah. That risk you're putting on yourself to dedicate 4 more years of your life, knowing how hard it was first time around, to dedicate 4 more years of your life not knowing the outcome.
Yeah.
Now, looking back at it, I did trust in the process. The structure that was there, the high performance, the coaches, the connections we were making with different countries in those 4 or 5 years in the lead up to Beijing. We were developing as a unit, which was great. And we kept getting better and better. And I was spending more time with Zor, and I was improving. And I could see myself getting better and beating certain lads. And, you know, there was growth there in my boxing. IQ, I was getting better. And it definitely was. But then I had to put that into practice. So we 3 more qualifiers for Beijing. I messed up the first 2. Yeah.
Pressure.
Now you're talking. You know, so I'm thinking this couldn't be it again now. This is my 6th attempt at an Olympic Games here. Last chance saloon.
What age? You're 26?
26. It was the April of the Olympic year. 26.
You're in your prime.
Yeah. So I was in great shape. Everything was fine. No injuries, no nothing. But last chance saloon. Talking about doing things the hard way. Or the easy way. The hard way, yeah. I was like really pushing the boat here, like hoping for the best. And
you know the way you said you were never happy with national titles? There was lads on that line on Tuesday morning at 11 o'clock that were happy with national titles, and you were always Olympics. When you got through that qualifier, are you happy then to go and qualify for the Olympics, or are you straight away, I want to win the Olympics?
I'm senior champion again, right? That's great. That's brilliant. Yeah, smiles, camera, oh, marvellous, right? But that wasn't.
Don't care.
That was just a stepping stone.
Yeah.
You know, I was getting so good in Ireland that there was no one going to beat me in Ireland.
Yeah.
Because we were in the high performance, we were learning an awful lot more. That's not to take away from the coaches around the country, but we were just that level, training full time. Our diet, our hydration, everything was bang on. So when we were going into nationals, we're 9 times out of 10, the champions there would win. Sometimes it could be a little bit of an upset, but I was winning all mine all the time. I was out on my own. So then that's it then. So you're senior champion, you get selected to go fight for Ireland in your qualifiers. Then you have to go and qualify for the Olympics. You don't get picked anymore like you used to back in the 80s and 70s. You have to earn your spot. So that was the hard part, was qualifying for the Olympics. Because we're in Europe, that like, what's the word? That pool that we had, that was the toughest continent on the planet.
Yeah.
You had Russia, Ukraine, Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, they were all there, you know, so it was tough. But then I failed the first two, and then last chance alone then was out in Athens again, back to where the Olympics started in 1894 or 1896 was the first games in Athens. I was back there trying to qualify for Beijing.
And when you get that, when you win that fight, where's your head at? Is it like, this is mission accomplished, or mission's only just starting? Because I'm all about winning Olympic Games. I'm not about qualifying for Olympic Games.
So when I stepped into the ring against the German to qualify, I had to reach the semi-final. This is the quarter-final.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had to reach the final. This is the semi-final against the German. Weiss was his name. And I'd sparred him 2 months previous, and the spar was 50-50. So I didn't know getting in here if I was going to win this fight or not. Sometimes you know you're better than someone. Other times you know you're not as good, and it's going to be a hard night's work. This was 50-50 fight. That's what made this victory more sweet, all the more sweeter for me. And when the fight proceeded and we sat back on the stool after the first round, it was 2-2. So we're level. Sat back down after the second round, it was 4-4. It was tit for tat. Now this is serious. This is the fight to qualify for Beijing.
It's championship quarter.
This is serious stuff, like, you know. And kept doing what I was doing. And then all of a sudden in the third round, it was 4 2-minute rounds back then. In the third round, it's like time stood still. And all these flashes come into my head. What if you don't win, Kenny? You're only going to be remembered as an 8-time senior champion. What are you going to work at? You're not going to be an Olympian. All this crazy stuff.
Is this when you're sitting on the stool, or
this
as
is
you're
me in
coming
the
back
middle
out?
of the fight, thinking of all these different outcomes if I don't win the fight. And all of a sudden, just a red stop sign come into my vision. The word stop. Get the next score. Just get the next score. Talking about mindful exercise here. Get the next score. So I landed it, made a miss and scored. Then I made a miss again, I scored again. Sat back in the stool and I was 2 or 3 points up going into the last round. And went back out into the next round, just coasted, made a miss again, got a few more scores. And when the bell rang, I dropped to my knees. That's where I won my Olympic medal. I just went to Beijing to collect it. Because I'd qualified. That was it. Monkey was off me back.
And is there a swagger coming out of that European division, given how loaded it is? When you go into the Olympics, you're like...
I knew when I qualified that when I go to those games, I'd be in the best possible shape of my life. I have a great chance of performing. And we focused on that in the high performance. Lads, don't forget about, don't look at outcomes, don't look at results, don't look at any of that, don't look at medals. Let's just focus on our performance. And I had that instilled in me by Gary Billions. Or if I go into that competition in the Olympic Games, I'm going to give it everything I have. And if I get beaten by a better man, I'll shake his hand and wish him the best of luck. So I wasn't worried about opponents, outcomes, referees, judges, nothing. Keeping it real simple. Focus on my performance. Because when I'm good on the day, I'm very, very hard to beat.
And I watched back the final. Have you watched it recently?
Not recently, no. I haven't seen it in a while now.
It's like, yeah. I'm not like a boxing aficionado. It seemed controversial, some dubious scores. Were you beaten by a better man? Did you run that fly home?
Funny enough, when I get out of the ring after beating Tony Jeffries in the semi-final, we walk down to the media circle.
He's a beast of a man, Tony, as well. Like intimidating looking dude.
Yeah. I know Tony well. We get on well. We keep in contact on social media and stuff. He's doing very well for himself. But when I get out of the ring in the semi-final, I walk down towards the media. Marty Morrison was there and I was talking to them. I looked over my shoulder to see who the other semi-final was. And it was my opponent, Zhang, and the Kazakh. Now, the Kazakhstan boxer was much smaller than my opponent that I reached in the final. But I wanted the Chinese guy to win, Zhang, because he was a bigger target. Yeah. And he did win. He got the decision. Now, he had a hard route to get to the final. He beat Artur Beterbiev, who's the Russian who's fighting the weekend now. Undisputed.
Okay.
Yeah. So Zora had a vision before the Olympic Games, my coach, that me and Beterbiev would meet in the final and I'd beat the Russian. But he says his dream was halted now because the Chinese guy got to the final instead. But Beterbiev was a machine, world champion going to the Olympic Games, but got beaten early, the second round. So I had a great feeling that I was going to win that final. I felt good. I was in great shape. I was just so relaxed and calm and happy. When I'm happy, I'm very dangerous. When I was boxing, I love having the crack in the dressing room, bit of slagging, bit of joking with Billy. You know, that means I'm alert. I'm switched on. And watching the fight back, the first round killed me because I'm a counter puncher. I like to get the score early and then move on the back foot to make them miss. But he was clever. But there was scores that I landed that I didn't get, and there were scores that I landed that he got. So there's 5 judges around the ring.
Yeah.
Each judge, 3 of the 5 judges has to hit a red or a blue button. Mine being a red and him being blue within the 1 second of each other.
Okay.
1 second to register a score. And I've tried judging. It's very hard. And you could hit the wrong button at certain times. You know, it's very hard to do that. But I genuinely believe if I had got the lead in that fight by 1 point, the style of the fight would have changed. So they kept him just ahead, just by a smidgen, just to stop me from winning the fight. But I genuinely believe I won the fight by 2 or 3 points.
Do you feel like it was bad judging or corrupt judging?
Bad judging. Just the way it was that he was allowed just keep that lead and them scores, that human error. But if I was offered that medal at the start of the games, I would have took it with both hands.
Yeah.
Can
we have a look at the medal?
It's there, yeah. So, you know, it's bittersweet, you know. Don't get me wrong, Jesus. All I wanted to be was the Olympian.
Where's the camera? That one? Look at that. Unbelievable. Thanks for bringing that in.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal. What do you feel when you look at it?
There's a sense of achievement there, you know, in the person that I was back in 2008. The journey that I've had to get there, and it is the journey. It's like that's the end product. Okay, I get that, but it's all those bits and pieces in between that people don't know about: the failures, the losses, the wanting to give it up, the returning back to that line at 11 o'clock on a Tuesday. Like, I didn't have to do that. I could have easily walked away 10,000 times. But why did I keep coming back? Was I stubborn? Was I mad? Was I both? You know, that's why I have the medal, because I kept coming back and knocking on the door and going, right, let's go again. So many boxers didn't do that. And that's like in life, going across the board. You have to keep... No one achieves that and standing still.
I guess the hard part for a young athlete listening to this is, at what point are you torpedoing your life? At what point do you go, yeah, I get it, keep coming back. But you need to be getting some sort of positive feedback from this to go, this is the right decision. Like, there's some glimmer of hope. Like, you had the high performance set up there. Like, I can feel stuff is starting to align, which gave you that confidence. But it's like, is it emotional like you? How do you build a toolkit for understanding now it's time to do something else?
Yeah. And there is that stage where you have to admit to say, you know what, this is not for me. And that comes from within. You know, coaches might tell you you're great and you're doing the right thing and you're working very hard. But if you genuinely feel that you're at the end of your line and you can't improve anymore, you have to make that decision yourself.
Yeah.
And that's a hard decision to make. And I made that myself in 2013. I got beaten by Joe Ward in the senior final. And I was retiring that day. That was when I wrapped it up. You know, I had enough. I was on the road a long time. Got beaten by a much better fighter. I had nothing else to prove. And I was okay stepping away from that. You know, but I did struggle with what I was going to do next. And that was hard for me. But sporting context, I went as far as I could. And I was around a long time. Don't forget, some lads get into boxing, they win 1 or 2, 3 Irish titles, and then they're gone.
Yeah.
I had 10. I was in 13 finals. Joe beat me 3 times. You know what I mean? 13 finals.
Yeah. And, you know, we're talking a lot about the athlete, but there's also Kenneth Egan, the person that's here all along. When you're in those pre-Beijing days, is your life 100% training, or are you starting to have a social life outside that? Are you starting to see the temptation to drink? You're starting to see the temptation of chasing girls on the weekend?
A lot of people didn't realise, and I'm public about my alcohol addiction, and the carnage it caused me after the games, and that 2 years, if you like, from 2008 to 2010, were the worst years of my life. And the medal got me into recovery quicker than if I hadn't won the medal. I genuinely believe I would have slowly ended up walking into an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting 10 years down the road or 15 years down the road with nothing.
Yeah.
With not the arse in my jeans. But luckily enough, it spearheaded me into recovery quicker because of the ferociousness of my alcohol intake. And I was always drinking. We spoke about there for the last, whatever it is, half an hour about high performance and the training and the coaches and the discipline and all that type of stuff. I trained very, very hard when I was in the gym. I really did. I was on that line, like I said, 11 o'clock, and I worked very, very hard. But the madness of it all was I had to work extra hard because 9 times out of 10 I was coming in with a hangover.
That was culturally, that probably sounds wild for a young athlete listening to this now, because drink has culturally changed, but for high performance athletes it's not done at all. Like even at lower levels now, athletes aren't doing it. But you got to think about the cultural context of that then. Even our soccer players, like you listen to, Roy Keane, Paul McGrath talking about coming back for internationals, and Jack Charlton will push the training later in the day so the lads could go out on the piss the night before. It was intertwined with sport a little bit. So what was the point where it became more than what all the other lads were doing, where you're like, I'm drinking a bit more than the boys here. I'm not as in control of this as I should be.
Like there was times where I did go on and I was binge drinking. That's how I'd operate. I'd drink for a period of time, maybe 3 or 4 or 5 days, 6 days, then I'd stop.
And you're training the next morning.
But if we had a bit of a break after competition, so I was very calculated on when I could drink. We had our full year calendar in front of us. So I'd say, right, I need to be in shape for this, get ready for this competition, then we've downtime. That's where I can let my hair down. Yeah. So that's the way it started that way, So
you live in 2 different lives. Yes, you have a different group of friends.
But the problem, of course, I didn't hang around with the boxers outside of boxing. But the problem was the gaps between my competition and my drinking, the gaps got shorter. The drinking got more prolonged, and then the training camp would shorten because I wouldn't have enough time to get ready. So I was only going to some competitions, a shell of myself. Probably still winning a medal here and there, but that was the problem. So I was burning the candle at both ends. Yeah. And I was catching up on me fast. But I kept just kicking it under the carpet. I'll soldier on. And like there's times I went into the gym, on that gym floor, like in a world of hurt. And 9 times out of 10 when boxers leave after a competition, they'd go home and the coach would tell them, now be careful, don't be going mad eating all around just because you have to come back and weigh a certain way. I'd be coming back in underweight.
Because you're just not eating
properly. I'm not eating, I'm just drinking till the cows come home. It's horrendous to say that. I'm embarrassed talking about it, but it's quite public anyway. But I come in and back into a strength and conditioning program to build myself back up again.
And the mad thing is then, you obviously knew that was doing you damage, but now we're moving into this data-driven era in sports where you can actually quantify the damage of that. Like, I wear a Whoop wearable a lot of time.
Look at your sleeping patterns and
you'll have 2 points, 3 points, and you wake up the next morning, like you're not drunk that night. You 2-3 points with the lads watching a game or something. You wake up the next morning, heart rate variability, dead. Sleep quality, gone. Your readiness to train, gone. You always knew that was bad, but you just kind of thought, I'll get through that session. It's only 2 or 3 points. I even had friends that say they'd ride better after 2 or 3 points the night before, going like, that's absolute nonsense. Like factually based on the data now, that's absolute nonsense.
Yeah, there was a period in my early late teens where I would be drinking on a Friday and Saturday, say, and I'd go for a sparring session on the Sunday morning. Now I'd have the jitters, the shakes, right? It'd be really bad. But going down to Drim, the boxing club, and sparring, no one would lay a glove on me. Yeah. And because I was that jittery and kind of on edge, it was like I was super sensitive to what was coming at me. But, I can't bring that to the Olympic Games with me. I can't take a risk and drink 20 cans before I fight the next day.
This is like my alcoholic uncle would say to me, I actually drive a bit better after I've had a few pints. He's like, I'm more conscious of it.
Yeah, that's a bit extreme, but you know where he's coming from. So I was more alert, if you like, in those sparring sessions. But to take it to the other level of Olympic level, that's just me sparring in a club on a Sunday morning. But I was very razor sharp. And I said, geez, this, there might be something to this.
But it's the talent gulf is just painting over the deficit.
Yeah, of course.
Like you're just that much better than the lads you're training with.
Yes.
Well, so you're coming out with the Olympics. What's the runway like off that? Because I remember as a fan watching it, being devastated you didn't win gold, but then turning on every TV program, every radio, magazines, newspapers, you guys are everywhere. Like, you're a little bit of a mini celebrity for a minute there.
Yeah, I couldn't handle all that media intrusion. That was never me. I'm not interested in all of that, you know, but I got sucked into that bubble, getting pulled from pillar to post and cutting ribbons to open this, that and the other, you know. And during the day I'd try and do all that, and then at night time then, when no one was looking, it was party time. I said, right, I'm at to win the medal here. I can let my hair down now.
Yeah.
Enjoy myself, not make any big decisions. I can just relax, and days turned
Because
into
the funding
weeks.
lasts another year after it.
The funding's there. Hadn't retired or anything. I was still competing, so that was all fine. But there was talk of me going professional and all this time. I had no interest in going professional. I loved the amateur game. I just loved everything about the amateur game and wanted to try and get to London. But in that spiral of madness, I did entertain the idea of going pro. So they flew me out to New York and to look at contracts and look at gyms and all this type of stuff. But I brought a couple of mates with me, my brother and all with me, and went on the piss over there. And then they flew me out to Los Angeles, a different crowd. So I was milking all this and while having the crack, looking after myself, and I suppose increasing that want for alcohol. I was never going pro in the end, you know what I mean? But I didn't go pro in the end, thank God, because on the final hour, an American, Joey Winters was his name. He had sold his New York haulage company for 100 million, right? His mother was from County Clare.
Yeah.
And he wanted to invest in some Irish sports person. And he had me over in the mother's house, having a cup of tea and a bit of dinner with him. He come back over to Ireland with the contracts, ready to sign me for a stupid amount of money, right? He wanted to start this whole thing. And on the last second, I didn't sign that contract. We were in the Clarion Hotel over by Liffey Valley. He had the paperwork there. I was there with my brother and my coach. And I says, Joey, I can't do this. Because I was inside, I was screaming. I knew I had a problem.
You knew at that point?
Oh, Jesus, yeah. Like, Joey, I can't sign this. It's not for me. Thanks a million. And he was quite upset after flying all the way across. I appreciate it. He says, thanks a million, he said. And off he went with a bit of a huff. But I was going to sell him a dud. I wasn't mentally in the right place to do any of that. That was guts of a 10-year contract.
Yeah.
But I was in a world of hurt.
Do you regret not holding your hands up at that point and saying to him, look, I want the contract, but I'm flawed. I have a problem here that I need your help with?
No, I just said, look, Joey, I'm sorry. I need to step away from this. It's not for me. And not soon after that, then I knocked into a neighbour of mine that was in recovery a long time, and we had a chat, and that was the start of my recovery, AA, and the journey into
and that's 2009?
That was 2010.
2010, so it was 2 years, basically 2 year bender.
2009, I met Joey Winters now, the early 2009s, and he was looking at contracts, and we were going to do this, and he was going to do that, and there was $1 million here, and bonuses here, there. Oh, lots of money, yeah, of course, but I couldn't commit because I didn't feel in me gut that was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And looking back, do I have any regrets? If I had signed that contract and moved to America and done all those things, where would I be today if I hadn't looked after me problem? You know?
Yeah.
Would I have been the journeyman that didn't achieve his potential because of his problems that he never addressed?
And so the post 2008, you're getting, you're swamped around to the morning breakfast shows, the evening.
Yeah.
Do you still have a group of mates around you? Like, looking back, is this a problem that your mates, like, should one of your good mates have stepped in and said, here, Kenneth, like, you're gone a bit past celebrating an Olympic medal here? Like, I'm almost getting to, like, were they friends or were they drinking friends?
Drinking friends.
Yeah.
Oh, that's all. Most of them were drinking
Any of my friends who have come out with a problem say that.
But starting off, I would drink with my mates, and then they'd have to go off and go back to work or wherever it is. So I'd still be drinking the next day. And then at the end of the week or the end of the 2 weeks bender, I'm high-fiving some outfit at the end of the pub, tell them a dirty joke, thinking all is well in the world, but it's not, it's sad. And there's a picture up on my pub there, my local pub in Boomers, of me with the medal. And I could envisage, if I hadn't stopped drinking, that 15 years later, which would have been around now, I'd be in that pub, still living in my mum's front room, walking up to the pub, sitting in that bar, right, giving some 18-year-old a nudge. See that fella there? That's me. Any chance you can buy me a pint? How embarrassing is that? But that's where the drinking would have brought me.
Yeah.
That's fucking scary to even say that.
Look,
imagine it. It's the shame of that is horrendous.
There's a lad that lives locally here in Clontarf, and I remember coming up, like, all I cared about as, I think I started playing football around the age of 4, and it's all I cared about, net bunking off school every day, up to the park, putting nets up, playing football. And one of the lads, who was a few years older than me, he at 16 signed for Man United, and he got to United, but he just couldn't deal with it. He was getting, 150 quid a week or something back at the time, and he thought he was Neymar with 150 quid a week. So he started hitting the bottle, and I still see him down the local pub now, and he's that lad that you were talking about that's like telling people, you wouldn't buy us a pint, I used to play for United. And I see him, and he's like, I don't know if he's homeless or he's what, but I tried to talk to him at the bus a while ago, and it's like he's not there. Like the brain's just dead from 20 years ago.
So how lucky am I? Okay, I'm sitting before you here, an Olympic silver medalist, right? Which is an amazing achievement. But how lucky am I to be able to get into my car, tell you I'm going to be here at 3:30, turn up at 3:30, leave here now in the next an hour or whatever, go into my car, go off and do what I have to do, go to bed at night and put my head in the pillow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And wake up the next morning, not knowing I'm causing any havoc, any trouble, worrying anybody. That peace of mind I have now outweighs any kind of achievement I've had in the past.
I did hear an urban myth that you only missed 2 nights out of a 45-night stint in Copperface Jacks at one point. Is there any truth to that?
Was it? No. Yeah, a friend of mine brought me there. I'm not a Coppers man anyway, but Jesus, a madhouse. But yeah, we ended up there a few nights alright. But again, it was just the enormous amount of drinking that was taking place was horrendous, you know. And again, you're lying in the bed and you're in the world of hurt and you're getting back up again and you're trying to fix the cure, getting the cure into you, trying to settle your nerves, and then it turns into another piss up, another bender, and that was I had no structure in my life after the games. There was no, and that was a problem with the association as well, and they've addressed that as well, where they had to call athletes back in after a certain amount of time. You're not going professional, you're still an amateur boxer, you're still getting funded. You need to be in. That was non-existent back then. It was just, oh, is he going pro? Is he not going pro? Well, okay, we'll leave him for a while, and it was just carnage.
I don't think we help ourselves though, Irish culturally. Drink is so accepted, and it wreaks havoc on like my own family. Like my mom's brother, who's my godfather, died of drink. Her other brother died of drink. She's a brother down there at the moment. She's down in Kinsale visiting him at the moment. He's bachelor, 75, living out in the country on his own. He cycles between days where he might drink, 2 bottles of whiskey a day. And this could go on for 6 months, and then he'd be off it for 6 months, and he's back on it for 6 months. And we treat it differently than other countries do. I think, and this is coloured by my family history of it, I think it's a disease like cancer, like Alzheimer's, like any other. They're not bad people, they're sick people. And the sick people need treatment for the sickness. But we throw out these tropes like, it's just a bit of crack, I don't think it helps us.
The education piece needs to be improved at a much younger age, that alcohol is a drug. It's a drug. It's an addictive drug. It causes havoc. 88 deaths a month alcohol related in this country.
Is it really?
88 deaths. You go into any A&E on a Thursday to a Sunday, you see what's in there. 9 times out of 10 it's alcohol related. We have this relationship with alcohol that's very, very unhealthy. Now, look, the stigma is changing, right? People are opting to 0-0s and not drinking at all and all these type of things, which is good, but it's still very, very bad. But the education piece around alcohol and the dangers of it, as you say, it's only a few points, a bit of crack. It might be for one person a few points, a bit of crack, but to the fella that has to drink to oblivion because of A, B and C, D happened to him. Addiction, there's an awful lot of trauma involved in addiction as well. You know what I mean?
That's multi-generational.
Of course it is, but the trauma ignites that addiction to suppress what's going on. You don't want to deal with it, you don't want to look at it, you avoid it. It's total avoidance. Well, how will I avoid that? I'm going to drink here now to forget about what's going on. And you're escaping your reality.
And our regulations around it now, like if you watch an Irish rugby match, Guinness 0-0 has been advertised. Like that's just a sneaky way of advertising Guinness. I just don't think it's right. It's just like advertising cigarettes.
I can't see them losing money because this 0-0 is so popular now as well. They're pumping. I think that they have to make extra, I don't know how many thousand kegs a year now because there's a massive influx in people actually drinking it. So they're not losing money, Guinness, with the zeros. It's the same price as a normal point, I think.
Yeah, but look, I have a mate who's a publican, and I do, actually, it's a good little tradition me and my dad have. Every Christmas, we put up the Christmas decorations in this pub, and I've done it since I was, about 4 years old, getting child labour, putting up these Christmas decorations. But chatting to the publican this year, and I was asking him about the 0-0, and he was saying, sales are out the door on the 0-0. He's like, but it's not because people are coming in here sober. They're going in, they're coming in already high, or they're coming in, they're doing coke in the bathroom, and then they're having 1 or 2 points of 0-0. So it's like, have we replaced one with the other here?
Yeah, but cocaine is a massive issue nowadays. It's everywhere, every toilet, every pub. Yeah. People don't even go to the pub anymore. They're dry coking. I'm a therapist now as well. I'm working with people that, that disconnect from social circles. Just at home now snorting coke. Exactly, So there's so much going on out there. Alcohol is just one fabric of it, but it's Jesus. It's relentless.
Do you have a moment you look back on where you're like, you know, a lot of alcoholics talk about like the bottom of the barrel, the tipping point where you're like, enough is enough?
Yeah, like I had many battles with, you know, what if I drink this type of drink, I won't be as bad, or if I try this one, or if I stick with the Guinness, or whatever it is, you know, it's all this different, every idea to not stop drinking. And, you know, it caught up with me at the end, like I said, burning the candle at both ends, but there was a few stories, like the one with my mum was a powerful story where I'm lying in the bed, and you probably, I don't know if you've heard this one, but I'm lying in the bed after a binge. She comes up the stairs. I'm still living at home after the games at this stage, right? And she kicks the bed. She wants to go for a drive. And I don't want to go anywhere. I'm lying in my clothes that I've worn for the last 3 weeks maybe. And the smell of piss off me. Please, son, bring me on the drive. I need to go to this place. I didn't know where she was going. So we were going up to a graveyard up in Tala, a 10-minute drive. I didn't want to be in the car. I was hungover. Got to the graveyard where she buried 2 sons before I came along. My eldest brother's twin and a brother older than me. And I'm thinking, why does she want to go to a graveyard on a day like this, knowing that I have a hangover? Poor me, you know?
Yeah.
And she gets over to the graveyard and she takes out a spare plastic bag and puts it on the ground, and she puts her knees on it. She starts pulling out the weeds. And she looks up at me. She's so kind of, if you don't stop drinking, you're going to end up here with the 2 lads.
Jesus.
Now, that was her, God love her, that was her kind of idea or way of trying to get me to look at me drinking. She had lost all other ideas, forgot about all other ideas, ran out of ideas. This was another one of our little ideas to try and, you know. So the damage I was causing my immediate circles with my drinking, I was oblivious to. I didn't care as long as I was drinking. But the ripple effect of that, you know, I could see the pain in her eyes that day. Now I drank again after that, you know. But they were the seeds that were planted. That was one seed that was planted in me. And obviously the passing of Darren, my teammate, who died by suicide, was horrendous as well.
Well, I don't know. I didn't hear that.
And I was drinking, like I was in town again, another bender. The phone rang. I was in one of them pubs in Temple Bar somewhere. Phone rang to tell me that Darren had died by suicide. Now Darren, if he was a machine, right? I wanted to be like Darren. Darren was the ultimate professional. Didn't drink, perfect diet, hydration was key, everything was bang on with him. He ate, slept and shit boxing. He wanted to be a world champion after the Olympics. He won his bronze medal and says, I'm going to go home now, I'm going to go pro, I'm going to win a world title. He was sorted. I was going home to go on the piss. He was an absolute machine. So to get that phone call, he was professional at this stage, turned pro, moved to England. I couldn't believe that. But in my own horrible reality, I was thinking, right, well, he's in London now. He's going to have to get brought home. We're not going to be called into training next week into the camp because the funeral is going to be on. So that'll allow me to drink more. So I'm thinking about my piss up, extending it, not being judged while one of my teammates is after passing away. That's the kind of horrible bastard I was. Thinking of that kind of outcome, no one's going to question me drinking now. I have something to drink for. You know that kind of way? Horrendous. Went to the funeral, devastated. Like, you had to have known this man to understand how brilliant he was and how perfect he was. And for him to be gone like that. If anyone was going to die by suicide in those 2 years, it was me. And I had thought about it many a time. Oh, in me binges, in me hangovers. You know, saying, why am I like this all the time? Why do we end up like this, in this pain, in this pain, in this pain? But lucky enough, getting the sober on the 10th of August, and you're talking about that time that kind of changed everything. I was in a pub in Nice with a pool cue in one hand and a half pint of Guinness in the other. I don't know who I was with that day. Don't know how I got to Nice. But the doors opened in the pub, and my mum walked through the doors. And she says, come home, son. She got a lift down. I got into the back of the car. I didn't say a word all the way home. And that was the 12th of August. 2010. I haven't drank since.
That was the last day?
That was the last day. That half pint of Guinness, I didn't finish it.
Jeez, your mum's a saint of a woman.
She's an amazing woman. She's still alive, thank God, today. She's brilliant. But she says to me, you know, your Olympic medal is amazing, Kenneth, but you being sober is your best achievement. What's your relationship like with your man now? Great. And my dad. Brilliant. Drop them everywhere when they need a lift. There's no problem. I'm always there for them, you know, it's great. But for them to be able to do that and ask me for a lift, I'm reliable, dependable, trustworthy, honest, authentic. That's where I am now. Whereas before, they wouldn't they'd even ring me to get a lift. They'd rather walk to where they had to go to. And they're about in their 70s. Because of the fear of me turning up drunk or half cut. You're like, come on, get into the car there. Yeah. Terrible. So the peace of mind I've given them by me stopping the drinking the way I was drinking. But it must have been an emotional roller coaster as well for an Irish mammy. Like every Irish mammy puts their son up on a pedestal. And then for her son to go and win an Olympic silver medal, the whole country's looking at her. The pride she must have had in that with her friends, with the neighbours.
And then for that pride for her to change from pride to one of the neighbours saying, I seen Kenneth, he's not looking great there down the local pub. He's been there 4 days in a row. That change in her must have been really hard, the pivot from one high to the low.
She said when I got sober and, we'd sit down at the kitchen table having a old yap and a cup of tea, she said, I didn't sleep for 2 years after those games properly.
Just worried about you.
Worrying about the guards knocking on the door to say they'd found you on the side of a road somewhere. So that worry, because I was so unpredictable, I'd go disappear for a week or two at a time, then come back in, scabbing my face, maybe they're falling, the jeans in bits, the short cut, never fighting around, never rowdy, none of that type of stuff, but just abusing myself, and not having no self-respect, being the horrible person that I was, you know what I mean? And never, like I said, never harmed anyone, none of that type of stuff, but just that constant neglect for my own well-being. And she was powerless over it, God love her. She tried everything to try and stop drinking, you know what I mean? But I had to get that done myself.
And we started this podcast with talking about what makes combat sports so special, and that word we came to was respect. So that must have been eaten at the sense of who you were. You're this 10-time national champion in a sport that prioritizes respect. It's a cornerstone of everything you've learned since you're a kid. And now it's not only that you don't have respect for your family, your community, the respect for yourself is gone.
Well, you look back at that timeline of all the sacrifices, the training camps, the horrendous sessions we went through through all those 10 years, 15 years. Like it's horrendous. But to put myself through all that, and then on the far side of it then, like when I come home with that Olympic medal into the local pub, there was a couple of 100 kids there cheering my name with posters. 4 days later, I'm standing outside the same pub holding it up, getting sick all over the car park in broad daylight. That's not normal. Yeah. That's not an Olympic silver medalist behaviour.
Fast forwarding it to 2013. So you've got the drink under control 2010.
2010 I stopped, yeah.
And then you've had more senior finals between, two senior finals between 2010 and 2013?
I won 2008, I come back, I won under 2, 2009, 2010. And then fought Joe down 2011, 12 and 13. So I got 3 cracks with him.
Were you happy with the way it all wrapped up, or did you look back on that decision not to go pro?
The first time Jesus, if I had went pro, I don't know where it'd be today, mental health wise.
Yeah.
So I dodged that bullet. Do I look back and go, I should have signed on that and got that check for X amount of money and all? Money doesn't mean anything to me anymore. I'm very grateful for what I have today, and that's my sobriety and a roof over my head. I'm very grateful for the people that I have in my life. I have a daughter there that's 9 years of age that has never seen me drinking.
Amazing. Never
seen me drunk. I'm sober for nearly 15 years. So she doesn't know that life that I've had. We talk about the good times in the past and what the good life that I've built for her now. Not about my drinking days or the binges or all that type of stuff. We don't talk about alcohol. It's not in our life.
Yeah.
My wife doesn't drink. I don't drink. We don't be in a pub on a Saturday evening or a Saturday or a Sunday morning. None of that.
It's brilliant.
We avoid all that. That kind of link is broken now. You know what I mean? So it's great. But the people that I hurt when I was drinking, I had to make amends to an awful lot of people. I let an awful lot of schools down that were supposed to turn up to with the signs, welcome Kenny. I wasn't there. I was on a high stool somewhere.
Yeah.
All those things in them 2 years. A lot of people let down. But the girl I was with back then in 2007 and 8 and into 9, I threw her to the wayside because of my behaviour, and we broke up, and it wasn't a nice breakup. And I went off and I got sober, and I had the balls to send her a text one day. How's things? And she told me to fuck off, which was fair enough. And so I sent her another text and ended up meeting up with her just to apologise and try and make amends to what the hurt I caused her. And lo and behold, we got back together. And we got engaged and we got married, and that's the child we have, the 9-year-old. So
that's brilliant.
It's the great that I worked out that way, because I genuinely believe that she was the one for me, and I fucked that to the side, but me drinking and me behaviour. So, and it was hard work getting back, the trust had to be worked on and built back up again.
But that must be a hard moment when you realise, whether it's the girlfriend at the time or your ma at the time, where you realise that this drinking, it's actually hurting other people, because everyone's gone on this journey. Like, we see sport as, like you said, hands in the air for a cyclist, boxer, fist in the air. We see sport as these moments, but really people come with us on this journey, and they're all invested in it, whether it's the volunteers marking the pitches or hanging the bags. They're all invested in that, and no one more so than parents, girlfriends, boyfriends, whatever it is. They celebrate that victory. They celebrate that silver medal just as much, if not more, than you do. And then to watch the come down, it's as hard on them, I'd say, as especially a girlfriend where she's so proud of you, and then it's like saying Kenneth, he was hanging out with some young one in Coppers there the other night. It's like, what?
Yeah, it's a total lack of respect, and we spoke about respect earlier on. Like a total lack of respect in my behaviour throughout those 2 years. You know, didn't care about anyone or anything as long as I was drinking, and I was doing my thing, and I was all right, and people pat me on the back telling me I was great.
Because the attention must have been just coming.
Of course, it was off the wall. Like people buying you drink and, you know, send you invites to this, that, and the other. It was just non-stop. And I did have that group of lads that were with me. You know what I mean? I wouldn't drink alone at the start.
Yeah.
Of course, let's all go together. Let's all do this together. And that got more consistent. And you know, the drinking was continuing. But at the end of the day, I wake up in the bed of my own in a world of hurt. The lads are all gone doing whatever they have to do, and I'm thinking, right, I need to sort this cure out here or this headache out. And I'm back up there again on the high stool, you know, and that prolonged, knowing that there has to be an end at some stage, and I'm dreading that end of the binge because that's when the nightmares start and the shakes and it's horrendous, you know. And you're saying you're never going to do that again. I'm never drinking again. Then you get well down for another couple of weeks and you're feeling good and you're starting to do a bit of running and you're training again and you're in good shape, and then boom, off she goes again. That force point, and it's that force point. I'm sober a long time now, and I respect alcohol. I'm not against it. People can go out and have their few points, but I know myself. I stay away from that forced drink. That forced point of Guinness.
And is that nearly back to we're circling back to the beginning of this conversation? There's so many, you know, circles that are closing up for us here as we finish it. Like we talked about situational awareness and staying out of fights, staying out of pub fights. If you're on a bus and a load of knackers get onto the bus, you can just get off the bus. You don't need to be there to be Jack the Lad. Is that situational awareness pulling yourself out of places where you could be tempted by that force point?
My awareness is very, very sharp now. So when I have good awareness, it allows me to make choices. So I can choose to drink or not choose to drink. I always have that choice to drink. Leave here now and go to a pub and sit there and drink a pint of Guinness.
Just for the force when you have a choice.
I have a choice, exactly, yeah. So I stay, and I do think of drinking sometimes. I do. I see an ad on the TV or something would trigger me to just say, oh, that looks nice, or, you know. But I fast forward 10 days from that first pint of Guinness and see what my life is like. And I can see myself down in the arsehole of Kerry with a wad of 50s that size, high-fiving some outfit in the corner. Oh, no, an open fire, nice and cosy, eating pints like they're going out of fashion. You know, but in that 10 days, it's destruction.
I have some
turmoil.
I have some very close people to me that are sober as well. And when you chat to them, a lot of time, like I've had the same experiences they've had in say 20s, but my experience, because I from a family where, you know, my mom and dad were both affected by alcohol, and much like you, they didn't want to pass it on to the next generation. So alcohol was, we never had a glass of wine in my house. No one ever had a whiskey after work. It was just, alcohol was not a topic. So I never became a drinker. But I talk to those people close to me, and they have associations between alcohol and good times. So it could be, you know, a summer day drinking in Trinity on the grass, or a festival where they associate a pint of cold Bulmers with it. Where I'd still have that association of a sunny day on the grass or going to a festival. I just don't have drink tagged to that. And I wonder, is it a case of, do you stay out of those festivals or the sunny days in Trinity, or do you have to break that association between the drink and that activity?
It's that visual, isn't it, that you just spoke about there? Like, why can't you not enjoy the sunny day with a glass of sparkling water? For what it really is, you know, I mean, a beautiful sunny day in good company. So why do you have to? And I was like that myself when I decided to stop drinking. You know, if it was raining out, I was on a high stool. If it was sunny out, I was in a beer garden. The all association around alcohol. Yeah. As long as there was drink there, I couldn't give a fiddlers about the weather. You know, that kind of way. But when I step away from that alcohol, then, so there's no reason for me to be in a pub. Those environments are not for me anymore. Yeah. So I changed my environment and changed the people I was around, first and foremost.
So everything was an excuse. It's like, I'm celebrating, time to have a drink. I'm commiserating, time to have a drink. Yeah. Sunny day, time to have a drink. Rainy day, time to have a drink.
It doesn't matter. You're making an excuse, a lame excuse to drink. You know.
What do you think? It's been you've many chapters left to write in this Kenneth Egan story. But looking back on, if we're halfway through the book, looking back, do you concern yourself about legacy? Do you care how people view you?
I know I can walk down the street, any given street, especially at my home place, and 10 people could point over at me and say, he's a bollocks. And one person would say, he's all right. I don't worry about either of them. I don't. There's something going on in their lives that they have to point at me and call me a bollocks. I know on a daily basis, there's two things I do every day. The first thing is I get out of bed, I put my 2 feet in the ground, and I tell myself I'm a good person. And I am a good person. I'm going out throughout that whole day, not to harm anybody, not to deceive anyone, not to cause any havoc, and do the right thing on a daily basis. I am a good person. And the second thing I do is when I go to bed at night, I say thank you. I'm very grateful for what I have today. For the people I have in my life, the roof over my head, the bit of grub in the fridge, my gratitude is very, very high. But I put the work in throughout those 15 years to work on my gratitude to allow me to have the life I have. I have nothing fancy, but I have peace of mind. I get up every morning, I do what I have to do, and I go to bed at night without harming anyone. That for me is priceless. From that other life I could have chose, this wins hands down every time. The simple life. The simple life.
Kenneth Egan, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, my good friend. If you enjoyed this conversation, please click up here. There's another video I know that you're absolutely going to love. And we're just getting started, so subscriptions really matter. Click over here and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our amazing upcoming guests.